everyone. Happy Tuesday. I've been receiving a ton of questions in February, so I thought I would just come on live and answer some of your questions. So first of all, I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos. I am a certified nutritionist and breast cancer thriver. Sometimes I say survivor. I'm not going to get too wrapped around the axle about either of those expressions. But anyway, I just want to say hi and answer some of your questions. And I had a phenomenal question from one of the people in my community. And I said, I've got to answer this live because I'm sure there's tons of people who have this question. And she said, what do you do when you have fear? What do you do around fear around food or fear of a recurrence? And she said, quite honestly, do you ever eat a donut? Do you ever have a glass of wine? Do you still eat red meat? Have you cut sugar out of your diet? And I have to tell you, I still eat all of those things, maybe not donuts, but just because I've never been a big donut fan. But yeah, I have the occasional glass of wine. I eat red meat 3 or 4 times a week. And, one thing I have learned in cancer is I'm not going to be so paranoid about food. As a nutritionist, I think most of my career, I was paranoid about weight and diet because I graduated from college in the late 80s, early 90s. That's when everything was about snack wells and, not eating any fat and how skinny can you get. And I bought into that for a while, not for a long time, but, I even transferred some of that to my clients. And it's not a healthy way to live. So what I've decided is to take that attitude towards staying cancer-free. So I eat a very heavily plant-based diet. But I also have really good, high-quality animal protein. I love salmon. I never eat farm-raised salmon. I know that I'm probably going to get some notes on that. But listen, farm-raised salmon and all types of fish might be improving as to the methods they had 15 or 20 years ago, but it still doesn't meet my standard. I will only eat wild Alaskan salmon. I get most of it from Butcher Box, or I live in Seattle, so I have access to good fish. I'm perfectly fine with not eating it fresh. I'm fine with frozen. I think frozen is phenomenal. And you know what? You're going to get just the same amount of nutrient content and the same fat and all of those things. Red meat. I grew up on a small farm, so I eat a fair amount of protein. Really high quality protein. I really do my best to avoid commercial feedlot types of meat, which means, going to a major supermarket and picking at meat there. So again, yes, I love Butcher Box, but I also try to get small grass-fed farms whenever I'm, in a market that I'm not used to. So yes, I eat red meat. I am not a vegetarian, although I was a vegetarian when I was getting my nutrition degree. Because I took a class and it sounded really interesting and then I drove my entire family crazy. I'm not a good vegetarian. I will admit that right now. I'm hungry all the time. I'm a volume eater. And I just couldn't get enough protein with being a vegetarian. So I happily eat meat and I'm not ashamed at all to say that. Let's talk about alcohol. Yes, there is an uptick in cancer risk, specifically breast cancer, with alcohol. Does that mean I never drink it? No, it doesn't. Sometimes I just like to have a mimosa with one of my kids. And she was here. She's 28. She's not a toddler. Just to be clear, she's 28. We had a couple of mimosas when she was here, and it was so much fun, and we had much joy and much laughter. So yeah, I will have the occasional drink. I would say post-cancer, I don't turn to alcohol as quickly as I used to. So maybe before cancer, at the end of a rough day, or maybe I was just having a hard time managing my emotions, I might have a glass of wine with dinner, and that maybe helped to kind of chill me out. But you know what? I've figured out other things that chill me out now because, again, I'm doing whatever I can to lower my cancer risk moving into the future. So what chills me out? Prayer. Talking to God really is helpful. Writing in my journal is super helpful. Watching the sunset, going for just even like a 5-minute walk is also really helpful. And that helps me to chill out. So I don't rely on alcohol for my chill out like I used to. The other question from this listener was, have I cut sugar completely out of my life? No, gosh darn it, I wish I could, but I love it. And so I'm just being really super real with you and saying I've cut back on sugar dramatically, especially in the last 20 years, dramatically. I have figured out other ways to kind of kill my sweet tooth. Let me show you one way. I drink hot tea all day long, not piping hot. Although you can see some steam coming off. Keith is going to get mad at me. He's one of my podcast guests. He said, never drink tea when the steam is coming out because it can burn your esophagus. We don't want that. But so let's just say I drink very warm water all day long. And you know what? There's some interesting anecdotal information that says that that can kill your sweet tooth and actually kill your appetite. And I told you I was a volume eater. So sometimes in the afternoon when I'm just feeling super hungry and I've already eaten, and so I know it's boredom or it's just maybe stress. I can be a little bit of a stress eater. I'll just drink my ginger tea and just be a happy camper. And sometimes I also drink this after dinner because I don't know about you, but one thing that happens with me is that I'll have a meal and then at the end of that savory meal, I need something sweet. It's kind of like a yin yang thing. And then when I have something sweet, it's like, oh, I can stop eating. And sometimes I still go ahead and have the sweet. What I have a tendency to do now versus the old me, which would be grab a handful or 2 or even 3 of Nestle chocolate chips. Yes, I use the excuse of we've got kids at home. I make cookies all the time. Okay, we don't have kids at home anymore, so I'm not buying those as often. But I would usually have 2 or 3 handfuls of those after dinner. Now what I do is I might take some really good dark chocolate chips, open up a date and just put a couple of chocolate chips in there, and I'll do 2 or 3 of those. Totally satisfies my sweet tooth. And then the date has a good hit of fiber, which also just helps to keep you full. And then if I have that with some warm tea, it's just a really great way to go. So that was a long answer to a kind of an intense question about, how do I deal with fear about cancer coming back? And I enjoy every morsel of whatever I put in my mouth. And I learned this tip also from my friend Hilda Labrada Gore, Holistic Hilda. You've seen her on my podcast before. And we were talking about what if you're traveling and you've forgotten your stainless steel water bottle and you have to buy a plastic water bottle. And I know that there's nanoplastics and microplastics in the bottle. And she said, just embrace it. Just don't think like, oh my gosh, I'm killing myself with this water. Just, think good thoughts, be positive. And you know what? You need to drink, you need to drink water. So just like I need to eat. And so if I'm going to have something that I don't normally have, we were at an event over the weekend and they had the most amazing French chef who's making all of these homemade French pastries. I had 1.5 and it was amazing. I'm still thinking about how great it tastes. And you know what I'm not doing? The new me doesn't beat me up for health choices that I make. And also, it's not a health choice. I just had a really good time eating a French pastry. So it is not going to wreck my health and really change my cancer profile or my cancer risk moving forward. So I thought that was a really great question. And I'm going to look at some of your questions. Farm fish is disgusting. I completely agree. The other thing with farmed fish is that they actually have to put dye in the feed to make the fish not look like as white as this napkin and actually make it look pink. So yeah, that's a hard pass for me. No, thank you. Lots of people joining. Let's see if there's any more questions. I do have a question about Gerd. Somebody was saying dark chocolate is my go-to. Yeah, me too. It's super flavorful and it's not as sweet as the other types of chocolate. And what I found is that cheap and I'll just say cheap and ugly chocolate is really cheap. And I feel like I have to eat a lot of it to satisfy my sweet tooth. But when I get a really good dark chocolate, I can just have a few bites and it really just like kicks the switch, and I feel really great. So, okay, let's see. We have a couple of more questions. All right. So somebody asked me earlier this week about GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. And before I had cancer, I had a kind of a run of bad luck with my health. And so in 2019, I got really, really sick. And I couldn't swallow. I was coughing all the time, like a ton of phlegm, which is your body's way to kind of coat your esophagus. So anyway, ended up that I had GERD, and I got really sick. Normally I weigh about 140 or 150 pounds. I don't really know. I don't really weigh myself, but I got down to like 105 pounds. I was like a walking skeleton, couldn't digest, couldn't eat. I mean, all I could eat was this like very mild chicken sausage and some goat cheese and a banana. Like that's what I lived on for a few months. And I wasn't getting a lot of help from my healthcare system. So I just had to really take a super deep dive, because the other thing is I didn't want to be on PPIs, which is like omeprazole and all of these acid blocking drugs. I didn't want to be on those forever, because you're not supposed to be on them forever. And B, it changes your gut biome. It really kind of just, none of your systems work functionally at the highest level that they possibly can when you're taking medications like that every day, day in, day out for years. So I wanted to try to get off of the drugs and also get my weight back up and just get my health back. So there was a book I bought. It's Dr. Jonathan Aviv. It's called The Acid Watcher's Diet. And I learned so much. And also I was diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus, which is a precancerous condition. And the esophagus is the cells of the esophagus, when they get burned from stomach acid going back north, it kind of is like a sunburn, or it's like a burn, like if you burn your hand cooking, where the tissue is then kind of soft and a little bit shiny, and it just never really recovers. And that's what can lead to esophageal cancer and this precancerous condition called Barrett's esophagus. So once I found that out, I was a woman on a mission. This book and a lot of hard work and a lot of prayer and doing a lot of other things really saved me. And now I don't have GERD at all, unless I'm just eating a ton of acidic foods, like maybe I'm eating too many tomatoes. I can't do, like, I know a lot of people do apple cider vinegar. That annihilates my esophagus. So that I can't do that. There's lots of great reasons to do it, but I would also say really dilute it down. I think just a shot of vinegar is really hard on the esophagus. That's the thing that people don't really tell you when they talk about apple cider vinegar. So I would highly recommend this book. The other thing I did is I stopped eating 3 hours before bed. I got to tell you, that was a super, super tough one for me, because for me, eating brings me a lot of happiness, a lot of peace, a lot of solace, and it's also family time, family and friend time. So what I do is I'd work all day, and then I'd start eating about 6 o'clock. And honestly, I would be eating up until the time I went to bed. So what happens is you're eating all this food and you're standing upright, and that's fine, because everything is, going south, so to speak. But then you lay down and all that food starts to go north, which is the wrong direction. So a couple things I did. I had to really work on my food intake during the day. So I do intermittent fasting. And so I would still have my breakfast/brunch around 10 o'clock in the morning, but I would have my main meal sometime between 2 and 4, and then maybe a good snack like at 6. Maybe I'd have a bowl of soup and a piece of toast, or a bowl of soup and a small salad, something like that. But I had to stop eating Thanksgiving dinner every night at 7 o'clock and then going to bed 3 hours later. It's really good for your body to stop eating 3 hours before bed. So I just want to say that that's one of the things that I never really considered, is how important it was to stop eating 3 hours before bed. Your body repairs at night. And if your body is busy digesting all of this food in your gut, it can't repair all the things that it needs to repair. Like maybe you have, a headache, or you pulled a muscle, or, you've got a lot of plaque buildup in your brain. I mean, like this is when your body is going to be clearing and correcting and healing these things. And so if you're stuffed, if you're really full when you go to bed, your body's focus is here, not on the rest of the body. So I'd say my top tips for healing GERD, which has then carried over into me just being such a healthy person today. Stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. Also, don't drink a lot of water with meals. I know people are going to reach out to me and say, but I drink, a gallon of water a day, or I drink 2 cups of water before I eat a meal. Here's what's happening. Sure, that's going to fill you up. And if you see all these diet gurus on TikTok and Instagram who, drink a ton of water before your meal, you won't eat as much. Also, here's what you're going to do is you're going to liquefy your stomach acid, which is intended to break down the food. So if you eat this food on top of this very liquid, full of water gut, your body's going to have a heck of a time breaking that food down, and it's going to sit, it's going to putrefy, it's going to cause gas, it's going to cause bloating, all the types of things that I know you do not want. So when I eat a meal, I don't drink a big glass of water before a meal. I take small sips throughout the meal because I want my stomach and I want the stomach acid to do what God intended it to do, which is to break down food. Okay, end of speech. We'll see if there's any more questions. Farm fish is disgusting. Yes, couldn't agree more. Do you filter your shower water? I don't yet, but I'm working on it. We do have a whole house filter, but one of the things that I do is I go to EWG and I check the water wherever I'm traveling to. And there's a couple of things I'm doing right now. So I am trying out some filtered water bottles. So bottles that actually have the filters inside. So I'm looking at Lark. I'm looking at Clearly Filtered, and I'm looking at Life Straw. I'm going to do an IG Live next week and just tell you what my findings are. But I love the idea that in a water bottle, it'll basically, kill parasites and take out the chlorine. But these bottles also get rid of the plastics that are in water. So I am just a huge fan of these bottles, and I've been kind of trying them out. One of the bottle reviews said, I took this bottle to Mexico, filled it up at the back of a gas station, and it didn't get sick. So I was like, that's the bottle for me. I thought that was really a great testimony. So I do filter at my sink. I'm currently looking for countertop water filters. We do have a whole house water filter, but I'm also just looking for kind of next level to just make sure we're getting stuff out. You've heard me interview Wendy Catherine, who's a toxins lawyer and a healthy living coach. And she was saying, this Clean Water Act in the 70s, she calls it the Not So Clean Tap Water Act. And the testing of tap water is now left up. I think it was in 1999. The government said, we will just leave this up to your local municipality when and if you want to test the water. So I got to tell you, I really doubt people are just saying, hey, I think we should test the water today for this X, Y, and Z. There's probably just a lot of toxins that are flying under the radar in our water. So I'm just doing whatever I can to make sure my water is clean and pure. I don't want to make detoxing my life too confusing and too overwhelming and too expensive. So what I'm doing is I'm basically checking off things off of my list that I use all the time. And I drink a fair amount of water. I'm not drinking a gallon a day. I think that's it's not part of my program nor part of a program I would suggest to anybody. However, I do drink a fair amount of water, and I drink a lot of tea and coffee and all kinds of things. So I want my tap water to be as healthy as possible and as pure as possible. Yes, can I repeat the name of the book I just mentioned? Yes, it's called The Acid Watcher's Diet by Dr. Jonathan Aviv, and it's AVIV. Yes, they add chemicals to water to negate the problems with pipes and well gases. Yes, there's just all kinds of chemicals, you guys, just everywhere. So I am just trying to mitigate those effects and impacts. Somebody was just asking about, do I filter the shower water? And I don't. We do have a whole house filter, but when I travel, we don't have a bathtub at home. And when I travel, I like to take a bath because I don't get the opportunity at home. And it's, I'm in a hotel, so it's like it's not going to be happening where it's going to be filtered water. But I just saw this cool thing the other day. I'm going to order it, I'm going to test it out, and I'll report back. But it's basically like this filter that goes on. It looks like a big tennis ball, and you tie it to the bathtub, the spout, and so the water is filtered as it goes through it. So I think that's a really cool idea. I literally know nothing about it, but I will look into it and I will let you know. And I'll check and see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, I will happily say goodbye. And thanks for joining me. This was really fun. I'm going to try to do these every week or so. And again, let's just not make food too complicated. I'm on Instagram probably more than I should be. And I see I follow everybody. Everybody I follow seems to be in the nutrition world and the wellness world. And a couple of things I would just say, final thoughts. Check and see who you're listening to, see what their background is, see what their education is. There's a lot of people out there who are preaching things that I just think, oh my gosh, are we still talking about X, Y, and Z? I should probably do one of these on myths in the health and wellness world. And then I don't like to be made wrong for what I'm doing. And I just feel like sometimes when I'm on Instagram, it's, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I hope that I don't come off that way. I'm just a gal trying not to get cancer again. And I just want to come to you and show you what I'm doing, what I'm testing, and what I'm trying. But I think it can be really confusing. And so my advice to myself and to you is to just start small. When it comes to toxins on your body, do you put a lot of lotion on? Maybe you start there. Like, if you don't wear a lot of makeup, like I don't normally wear a lot of makeup, so that's going to probably be last on my list to fix. But I do oils and I do lotions, and maybe that's a good place for you to start too. And before you invest in a crazy expensive air purifier, get a bunch of plants in your house. Snake plants are fantastic for helping to, really purify the air. And there's a lot of other different types of plants. So Google it and send me more of your questions. I'll do this again at the end of March. And thanks for joining me today. Take care. Bye.